Hello and welcome back to Dragonstone. My name is Ebube and you are listening to Popcorn for Dinner. Today we have a very packed episode. We cannot wait to dig into it. There's a lot going on in Westeros this week, and I think some people in King's Landing are finally ready to take action, even if that action is a bit premature. We'll probably check in a little bit with our people in Dragonstone as well, since, we are Team Black over here, still representing for now. And I'm joined by my good friend Afam, who is here to break everything down with me on this fine day. Because, I mean, what's stress without sharing? Am I right? So,
Well,
Afam, how are you feeling today?
we're good. We're good. Season 1, episode 3. I don't know who directed this episode, but
It
it
was
was
Geeta Vasant Patel. Yeah,
Ita directed a few in the last season,
she
right?
did.
Yeah. Shout out
She
to I
did.
can't remember what episodes, but I think she might have directed 7, which I liked. But I'm not sure. But it was a good episode. It felt like so much happened, and I think a challenge for discussing this episode is to pick what were the standout moments because
There's
almost
too
everything
many. This is
it
too
just
much
felt
going
like it was
on.
an episode of standout moments, almost like a Saturday Night Live versus like a
Supercuts
stand-up.
delight. Like, you feel me?
Exactly, exactly. So we will try our best to curtail all the important information so you don't miss anything. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, share, and let's get it.
Speaking of which, we are actually covering a lot on this podcast right now. Okay. Just yesterday, at the time of recording, our review of Pixar's Inside Out 2 came out. And Priscilla, Jess, and Zikora had a lot to say about it. Okay. It's a really good take on why every emotion matters. And I think everyone should give the movie a shot, listen to what we have to say about it, and let's just get talking about it honestly. We're also covering The Boys, of course, which is still here in all of its gory glory. And I'm definitely loving the show. I actually even picked up Gen V, which I never watched while like it was still airing, but I basically finished the entire thing in like a day, maybe a day and a half. I'm very glad that I got the chance to actually binge that. I think it was a really good experience, and I talked a little bit about that in the second edition of our newsletter, which is upcoming. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that. We have a lot of interesting content for you there. Just right now while you're listening to me like ramble about the newsletter, please just go subscribe to your newsletter because we're really excited to show you what we have going on there. I talk a little bit about why I loved a certain episode of of Gen V, and I guess that is the joke, isn't it? I mean, not that I didn't already see that, I suppose. But yeah, we are definitely talking about the shows we love there and content that we just can't really cover as much on the podcast because there's just too much and everything is everywhere all at once. But yeah, definitely give that a shot. But let's switch over to House of the Dragon now. So, just like last week, I find myself thinking about the aftermath of the previous episode and how everything is being affected. The discourse is very cool because obviously we watch these episodes a little bit ahead of time. So it's always funny for me to on Sunday to watch people spiral into the depths of despair when the actual episode comes out. And I realized something. Okay, I actually wanted to tell you this, Afab. I realized that there was a line that I didn't quite get slash hear in episode 2, close to the end, like when Otto and Allison are talking. She says, "I have sinned," and Miles was like, "I do not wish to hear of it."
Yeah, yeah, I
I'm
remember
like,
that.
yo, I don't even know how that went over my head the first time. I think I heard it, but like I was just focused on other things because, bro, I watched the thing again a couple days ago, and I'm just like, this is the funniest line in this episode by a long shot.
Yeah.
Like it's not even close. This episode is just so funny. People are making fan cams on YouTube of Otto now. Like the man has his own fan base, and I just think that's hilarious. I mean, I don't know, like, what did
Miles was
anybody have
not
anything?
interested.
Oh my god, I was like, wow. I mean, I know you have a lot of people who are watching the show as well. Like, did anybody tell you anything about how they were feeling?
Hmm. I feel like people have just been kind of my take on people's reactions that the thing that will kind of things that were just like, oh my god, that just happened, I'm hooked, haven't happened yet this season.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and
In your opinion,
in my opinion of what I've observed from people,
okay, okay, fair
which
enough.
is why I lean into the they should have killed that child in a more brutal way
You're
to
still
get
on
people to
this.
see that.
I
Man,
hear
you know
you.
how I am with agendas, man. My agendas are gonna agenda.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
they are agending.
but yeah, it's overall. I think the reactions I'm gonna have been positive, and I'm glad to see that I am not alone in my hate of Kristen Cole. A lot of people
Oh,
do not like
definitely
that
not.
man. And a lot of people are just there's so many memes I'm seeing where people just Google when and how does Kristen Cole die? And
People
I'm like,
can't
bruh,
even wait. They're
no,
spoiling the show just to find out how he
no,
dies.
just to find out how he dies.
That's absolutely wild.
Well, Vala Morghulis, all men must die. So
Valadoharis.
eventually, exactly. Oh, let's stay away from spoilers from Game of Thrones. Just in case there's some folks who are 8, 9 years too late.
You know what? We will have mercy on them.
Just for today.
And thank you as well to everybody who's been engaging with us on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere about the show. We really appreciate your questions, really appreciate your feedback. We actually wanted to shout out well, a few of the comments slash questions that we got specifically on Spotify. Like if you're listening on Spotify, you can actually leave comments and questions there. Um, I know a lot of people, well, a few people told me that they liked our coverage and liked some of the details that we had in there. But there was one specific question that stood out to me. Dami asked if we think that if Viserys had named Rhaenyra his heir, but ended up marrying Lena Velaryon, the 12-year-old girl for everybody who's following us, instead of
Just for the
Alicent.
nine.
Oh my god. Okay, so if he ended up marrying Lena Velaryon instead of Alicent and then had sons with her instead, would Otto have done a coup and would the Velaryons have supported? This sounds like a very, I mean, I have thoughts obviously, but this sounds like a very, our family is very passionate about this topic kind of question. So please go ahead.
Interesting question. But no. At least I don't think so, because Otto's whole thing is that he has someone who is his blood in the royal
Hmm.
family. If I
It doesn't
think that
advance him in any way to stage a coup in this kind of scenario, I think.
exactly, because the reason why nobody has staged a coup against us to be easier if I could discuss Game of Thrones, but the
Hmm.
reason why nobody has staged a coup
If
against
you
the
haven't watched Game of Thrones,
Targaryens.
we're giving you till next week because I'm just saying now, like it's gonna get very hard to discuss this show without. Anyway,
Yeah,
please go on.
but the reason is because nobody has a counter to the dragons. The dragons have only been used in Westeros once, and that was when Aegon the Conqueror took over. A little bit when Maegor the Cruel was doing his thing, but
Yeah, they're a very
essentially
effective
dragons
deterrent right now.
exactly because nobody has a counter to them. So there's no scheming. Even if you pull up blood and cheese and you kill all the royals who are in the capital, you still have people who are in Dragonstones. You still have Targaryens all over because they started to spread out into the population. As we know,
Exactly.
Rhaenyra's mom is from it's an Arryn. She's from the
Hmm.
Vale, which is a different place. So, in that regards, I think that Otto wouldn't have had much to stand on. But the more interesting one is that what would Corlys have done? Because Rhaenyra would still have an heir, but now
Hmm.
Corlys would have been in the same position Otto is in now, which is, hey, my child's child, especially if one of them is a boy,
Yeah.
maybe I can argue that that should be who the heir to the throne is. So that
Yeah.
could be something there. I think that's probably the more interesting one. But just based off what I've seen of Rainey's, I don't think that I think she would have been like put the brakes on that. But Corlys also does what he wants all the time.
I might actually even add that that everything you just said regarding Corliss would be built upon what he's already experienced with Rhaenys having been passed over.
Exactly. So
Right.
it would
So this
literally
man
be
would he's not
yeah.
gonna try and lose twice.
Yeah.
So I think that there would be a lot for Corlys to do in this situation more so than Otto. I mean, Otto probably would still be maybe Hand of the King, right? So he would want to serve Viserys' interests. And there's actually a line of discourse online and in different places about how Otto really has done nothing wrong. That all he's tried to do this whole time is his job. Like from the beginning, he had a feeling this whole war thing was going to happen. So he suggested marrying Rhaenyra to Aegon, which feels kind of wild, right? Rhaenyra is older than Aegon by several years, but that hasn't stopped a lot of people. It definitely didn't stop Targaryens in the past. I mean, literally, we're here talking about Viserys marrying a 12-year-old at the age of like, almost 40. So it's interesting to me that Otto is kind of always trying to do the best for the realm, and it's almost as though whatever he can do for his house in the process, he'll take. Whereas as an opposite, do you have a thought on that?
No, finish your thought. Finish your thought. I'm
Okay,
thinking
I
of.
was I was gonna say the difference because I saw, because in addition to all this discourse, I saw questions about how Otto and Tywin are, like, Otto is kind of, someone called Otto the poor man's Tywin, which I think is a huge insult because they are kindred spirits in my mind. They are not necessarily the same person, but they have a similar vibe. They have the same goals and they're in a similar position. Grandchild on the throne, daughter is somebody that they made into a queen. But I think Otto, they're both concerned with legacy, but Otto is very measured in his approach, in the sense that he, like I said, takes what he can from the spoils of what he gets for the realm, whereas Tywin gives the realm out of the spoils of what he gets for himself.
Mm.
Right. So Tywin is like me, my legacy first, and in that, let us build, a dynasty that will last 1,000 years.
Only for it to last nothing.
Yeah, literally nothing by
Yeah.
comparison. So yeah, that's just something that occurred to me. But yeah, what do you think?
I hear you, but that's cap. Because
How
I'm kidding,
so?
I'm kidding. No, because I think that autos again. How do we get into that situation in the first place? And when you talk about history, it's just like Rainey said this episode. When did this all start? Was it when Aemon killed Luce? Was it when Aemon took Luce's eye? You can keep going back. But let's not forget that the only reason why Aegon was born was because Otto pushed the agenda onto his daughter to get married, to curry favor with the king in a way that ultimately led to them getting married. Yes, saying Rhaenyra and Aegon should have gotten married it made sense
Hmm.
in the sense that you just bind them so that there's no conflict between them.
Yeah,
But
because they're invested in each other's success, right?
Otto would still win because his
Would
grandchild,
be the king.
would be the heir. So it would
Yeah.
be a case of, yeah, we can just probably kill Rhaenyra and then Aegon would be king. Maybe he won't do that, but honestly, maybe he will. Or it can just. My point is that it wasn't for the good of the realm. It was for his family's goal and what he viewed as the good of the realm. But that's biased inherently. And I do think he's a poor man's Tywin Lannister, because Tywin had this unbelievable will. And it's so clear to see that the fall of House Lannister, Tyrion's true contribution to it. God damn it, I can't talk spoilers. All right, well, let's get into this episode.
Yes, let's get into this episode. Would you like to recap it for us?
We start on with probably one of my favorite parts
Oh
of
my
the
god,
entire
same.
A Song of Ice and Fire lore, is the Bracken versus Blackwood conflict again. It's
Those
been
people, man.
They're always fighting each other, and nobody, the truth of history becomes a fog of war at a certain point. No one
Yeah.
knows why they hate each other, and they just do. And that was a recurring theme in this episode, because Rhaenyra and Rhaenys talked about it. That once you start,
Thank you. Thank you. Spitting bars.
where's the start? It just keeps going and going and going, because people will just remember, evil deeds beget evil deeds. And
Yeah, sin begets sin. It's amazing. I mean,
yeah,
even well, Strong, who we'll talk about soon enough, said something along those lines. In the end, people are not going to remember why they're even doing this.
yeah,
Uh, shout out to my friend Sonen, who's probably he probably enjoyed the heck out of this, because he and I are always talking about the whenever sometimes when we discuss this show and like the world of Ice and Fire in general, we discuss this whole conflict between the Brackens and the Blackwoods, and how, like, sort of theorizing on how this would have started, who was active at what time, why certain things are happening. So to show us a full-on scuffle, kerfuffle that turns into a bloodbath of this scale.
Yeah.
I mean, the camera just kept panning out, and I was like, wait, hold on.
Wow.
How many people
Yeah.
were involved in this? And then in
Yeah.
King's Landing, they're calling it the Battle of the Windmill. It's like, what? It's so big that it got its own name. What kind of name is the Battle of the Wind? And to be fair, though, as soon as the scene started and I saw a windmill, I literally said out loud, this can't be good. When in Game of Thrones have you ever seen a windmill and something good happened? Genuinely.
Literally never. Literally never.
Like, there's this, I mean, one big one that comes to mind is that
Whoa,
one
whoa, whoa,
time.
whoa, whoa. Spoilers.
Okay. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm calm. I am calm. But yes, see windmills, you run. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's interesting that, Mr. Bracken kind of talked a big game there, right? And of course, he had retainers and everything with him. I remember the words of Sir Roderick: "Never draw your sword unless you're prepared to wield it."
Yeah.
And this, once he brought out that sword, I was just like, oh gosh.
He did not
They
look
told him you
confident.
wouldn't dare, and I was like, okay, what's going to happen here? Maybe he's going to be like the other guy from season 1, because there was a different Bracken and Blackwood fight in season 1 that just didn't end well for somebody. And I just thought, okay, what's going to happen? And then it just cuts to dude's sword in his own neck. He's on the ground. You can't see anybody else. There are horses in the river. It's almost like the Seine in France. It's weird. I just didn't expect that level of carnage, and well, I don't know how that's going to. I mean, it's definitely going to have some implications for the Riverlands, which were very, very prominent in this episode.
Yeah, because it's I think the Riverlands geographically is in the middle of everything. So
Yes,
anytime
it is.
anything goes down, someone goes to set the Riverland on fire. But this is unique because the Riverland chose to set the Riverland on fire. It's a house that it just there was 2 houses that have just been waiting for any excuse to go to war because they hate each other, and they're like, "Oh, you're the blacks. Well, I'm green. Fuck you. Let's fight." And it just leans into a theme of the show so far, where people are making plans and doing schemes, and then you feel like you have full control on everything that's going on, and then some random motherfucker just decides to start
Bro,
some
you're
shit.
talking plans and schemes. These guys, like, all of this happened because somebody moved some rocks, man. Some rocks.
Those rocks better have a fucking adamantium or some shit to cause all this carnage. Oh, first of all, allegedly moved from rocks, so we don't even know if they actually moved the
Allegedly,
goddamn
right?
rocks.
We don't know who moved the rocks. We don't even know if the rocks were moved at all. Like, that guy just wanted to fight.
Yeah, nigga just wanted to fight. Eve's best
Speaking-
performance.
Wait, what?
Eve Best as Rhaenys this episode. I was obsessed.
Her dialogue was on point.
I was
The
obsessed.
delivery of that dialogue.
Everything was so good, man.
Amazing.
Rhaenys might be my favorite character right now.
Yeah. She's pulling her weight for sure in this narrative. I mean, she said, of course, that hotter blood has prevailed in this war, and that's why certain decisions are being made. But what I find interesting is, we see court scenes in both camps, and watching the Greens, you can feel Otto's absence. Like, I kept waiting to hear his voice, and then I realized, oh wait, this guy's not here. Ew. Like, I was just like, bro, what are we gonna do? I mean, what are they gonna do? It's not like I care what happens to them. But
You literally you keep outing yourself in little ways every time. What are we gonna do?
Listen, man.
Speak
By
about your
we,
homies.
I mean the realm. Okay,
Yeah,
if Otto isn't there to stop these guys from doing stupid things, everything is gonna burn. I just don't want a situation where everything burns, because the court contrast is very interesting, right? Because the Greens have their young people trying to rush forward without any real indication of, I don't know, sense.
Yeah.
Whereas the Blacks have their own people, their own young people waiting and just like chilling in the background, holding on. And I think that's, and of course I'm talking about Rhaenyra here, right? So Jacaerys, he wants to move forward too, but Rhaenyra is kind of holding everything together. And I found myself missing Otto in those scenes, just from like a narrative perspective as somebody who watches the show, because Rhaenys was out here sounding like me, asking what started the war in the first place, recounting all the different steps of how we got here. I definitely enjoyed that. So watching her own performance as all these guys, Broom, Massey, Bar Emmond, Celtigar, they're all trying to take agency away from Rhaenyra, and she calls it treason. And Rhaenys is like, "You guys watch yourselves." She did that so well, and then she goes and tells Corlys about it. And she's such a caring wife too, bro. Driftmark is a different island, but she brought him lunch. She packed him lunch, right? This is beautiful. This is insane. Like I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
I
it seems
absolutely
like
love it.
they're the best couple in the series.
Yeah, I mean, we've
They
already
might be the
established
best
them as
couple
such.
like across the whole Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, uh, little bit history. Shit, my brain isn't working, but we can obviously can't talk spoilers. Yeah, that their conversations just seem so sweet and cute and like nourished with love. But obviously, Rhaenys is aware. I feel like Corlys is not like aware of what's going on, and
Yeah.
there's like a whole ass war is about to break out. Who do you think he should rename one of Daemon's daughters as his heir? One of the twins.
Mm, part of me says yes, but then it will look weird
Why?
because it's like, why are you taking the line of your succession away from Rhaenyra's direct line?
Because they
And
because Michael Jackson. That's
well,
why.
yes, because Michael Jackson, sure, but at the same time, it's like Joffrey is a child. It
Yeah.
makes sense to keep him as the heir because he's the younger brother of the previous heir, Lucerys,
Yeah.
right? But he can change that whenever he wants. It's almost as if it would be very abrupt, and it would be a very notable thing if he takes that away from Rhaenyra's line and moves it into Laena's line, and that's fine because like these are his grandchildren at the end of the day. But naming one of them, I mean, who did they say was it? It
It'll
was Rhaena,
probably
right?
be the dragonless one,
Yeah.
probably.
So Rhaena being the heir is interesting, and I think that she would have a lot to offer in that regard. But I think she probably has a potential for diplomacy that we haven't seen yet. So I'm
Mhm.
hoping we get to really explore that, especially now that she's heading to the Vale with Joffrey and a couple of dragons and dragon eggs. I mean, what did you think of that? I mean, they didn't show us the tiny dragons, Stormcloud and Tyraxes. Stormcloud, by the way, is the dragon belonging to Aegon the Younger, Rhaenyra's son, and Tyraxes belongs to Joffrey. And these dragons, they're traveling. You can see the dragon keepers holding them in those tiny little cages. I mean, I just love seeing the dragon keepers because, bro, they're so serious about their job
You
and
have
they're
to be.
formidable fighters too. I mean, we see one of them at the end of the episode, and I loved that. But we'll get there eventually. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I think it was cool that there were these eggs too because Rhaena is essentially being entrusted with their future in a
Yeah.
sense. She's being given a chance to hold on to what might come of them if everything essentially hits the fan. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all that stuff is how
Yeah.
all that stuff plays out, we and maybe those kids will do well in the Vale. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. I think it's a good idea for them for the it's a good idea for the blacks to kind of just spread out.
Mhm.
Because at least if you're in the Vale, you have like a base there. Rather than
Yeah,
just be
because now they're
concentrated on
killing little
Dragonstone.
kids in their beds, right? So
Exactly. So the Vale is impregnable, allegedly. So
I love how she was like, it's so funny because Damon is the one who did that, and then Damon left. But she's like, yo, now that Damon did that, somebody might do that to me. I need to send my babies far away. She tries to send them even to Essos, right?
yeah,
To Pentos, where Damon and Lena first were raising Bela and Rhaena, right?
yeah,
I feel like, I mean, if that dude there would have them, I mean, of course that'd be great because they'd be far away. But who knows what's going to happen at this point? I think it's
yeah,
cool that everybody's still within reach, just for like just for narrative reasons. I think it's nice that we can kind of still access these characters because everything everything is expanding in a sense. With
yeah.
Game of Thrones, you had a lot of different
That
things in different places, right?
okay.
And then the story was kind of converging over time.
Yeah, okay. I think
But
about spoil stuff.
with this, I don't like to spoil things, but with House of the Dragon, the story has to expand a little bit first. Like we started in a very small, intimate part of the world, and we got to know some people very well. And now we're seeing how that world is expanding, and we're bringing in new characters, building alliances and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of communication, of course,
Hmm.
even though Rhaenyra is ignoring Alicent's texts.
I can't blame her. Can't be texting when you see a green text, you don't want to respond.
That sounds like iPhone elitism, but
I'm kidding. I use an Android. I don't know. When you iPhone folks are talking green, blue, I don't know.
oh my gosh, how do you feel? I feel like maybe it is. I think it's probably a good. We're getting to a point now where it makes sense to ask ourselves, how is Rhaenyra as a leader?
I think that she has the restraint necessary to not for the good of the realm, but how does that protect like her self-interest? That is yet to be seen because I think my two big Rhaenyra things from this episode, well, excluding the Alicent conversation, but my two big
Hmm.
Rhaenyra things are one, hell fucking yes, Millie Alrock was back. Let's fucking have it. And
That was
two,
great. Yeah, that
I
was
was
good.
so
I
excited. I
love
hope
seeing
we do
Emilia
more
Clarke
things
again.
like that. Just we don't care about Alicent as a kid. Just Rhaenyra. And
Fair
but
enough.
one is Miliaric is back, and two is I just keep trying to think. Like I think we all know war is coming. We've seen the first battle pop off today. Sorry, at the start of the episode. What
Hmm.
is the thing, if anything, that is going to make Rhaenyra just like, let's go, like let's fucking have this war? Because I thought at the end of season one, the look she gave us was like, okay, Rhaenyra is about that blood life. But obviously, we've seen that she still has restraint.
Yeah,
So she is a good leader for the realm, way better than Aegon because Aegon is just a bully, a waste man bully. She's a good leader for
yeah,
the realm in the sense that she's so willing not to plunge into utter carnage. She even, told all the twins, all the dragon riders, including the twin Bela, not to attack anybody. Just see and observe, but don't attack. She's showing
yeah.
this restraint, but I'm just hoping this restraint doesn't ultimately bite her in the ass because, man, sometimes you need to burn some niggas with the dragon. If Rhaenys had burnt them niggas in when she broke out, when Aegon was crowned king in episode what 9 or whatever, this would
Yeah,
have been a different
it's an
story. Um, but maybe that restraint, some people would view it as weakness. I think it's a strength, but there's the balance of restraint and chaos.
still though. I think she could probably expand her mind a little bit when it comes to just even as an opponent of the Greens trying to understand their point of view. Like the
Yeah.
fact that Rainey's had to be the one to tell her, hey, these accusations against Allison, they're very similar to accusations that you yourself have been getting, right,
Mhm.
recently. So maybe you understand that maybe Allison is not completely cool, probably, with everything that's going on there. And I guess, honestly, since we're discussing this, we might as well just jump right to that scene at the end where Rhaenyra spirits herself away to King's Landing with one of the Dragon Keepers, which by the way is, I believe that is the same Dragon Keeper who handles her own dragon Cyrax.
Mm.
Fantastic, very good continuity there. Well done, writers. Well done, Gita. Um, I think it's cool that obviously nobody recognizes them at all because she's dressed as a sister, right? So
She's in her Daemon. Daemon wears the cloak. She goes as a silent sister.
yeah, but she still had a dagger, right? It was still like it's funny because like Cloak and Dagger was literally Cloak and Daggering him. And the Dragon Keeper was sitting outside just waiting. I mean, I love how that dude was just ready. And he was, yeah, I'm sure he's well trained and everything. Having Rhaenyra talk to Alicent in that way, that was fun, because they obviously haven't talked to each other in person since that dinner. So that conversation, is might actually lead us to the answer to your question of what will it take for Rhaenyra to actually jump in and start to take action that can be considered drastic. And that's the fact that now Allison has confirmed for her that there was no mistake, like on her part anyway, that the Greens are the ones who made the mistake, that
Yeah.
Viserys did not unname her and Alicent misunderstood. Alicent can't fathom right now how she misunderstood the information that Viserys gave her. But
Mm.
Rhaenyra has all the confirmation she needs because she's like, oh my God, you mean to tell me? And the way Allison doubled down, oh man, that
Yeah.
almost broke my heart a little bit because you would think that, I mean, definitely you never expected, it's not like anybody was expecting her to capitulate just like that, of course. But the way she was just like, no, no, I'm not letting go of this position. I'm not letting go of what I've gone through here. I'm not letting go of what we are working on my side. I'm not letting the side down. We are still gonna kick you guys' asses. And even if I'm wrong, I'm gonna be right because the truth is whatever we make it, and
Exactly.
history is told by the victors. And to see Allison take that position here, man, real fire and blood might be looting here because it might get to a point where she no longer even desires to stop Aemon and Aegon from flying into destruction. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm glad that they got to talk. Like I really enjoyed that. I was low key scared that it'll be one of those things where Rhaenyra almost gets to meet Alicent but doesn't end up succeeding. And I'm glad that they actually got to have that heart to heart and for them to at least have a little bit more understanding of each other's perspectives. Because now I'm curious to see what each of them will do with that information. Like, is Alicent going to, for example, say Rhaenyra was here and she talked to me? I hope not. But because I don't think that Rhaenyra will necessarily be doing that, but she might mention it to the people closest to her. Of course, Daemon is not around, and as we guessed, he did go to Harrenhal, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like Rhaenyra, this might light a little bit of a fire under her, because now it feels like she has not just if up until this point she's felt like she's been grasping at straws. Now I think she feels like there is something I'm reclaiming because it's just been confirmed for me that this really was mine all along.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It definitely. I think it will light like a fire in the sense that because the look of heartbreak she had when she thought that doubted herself and like, oh my God, Viserys really chose someone else. It
Yeah,
was really heartbreaking. Thank God Alison just kept talking some more and just clarified that whole
honestly, yeah,
situation because at
yeah.
least she can approach this knowing that no, this was my father wanted me all the way to the end. Like he thought he was talking to me, and but again, like I said when it
And she can't even
happened.
start explaining all that because, like, where does she even start?
Yeah, exactly, because she's not supposed to know that. But when I even heard all of that, even when Viserys died, an interesting fact, I just realized Geeta Patel directed that episode as well. So Geeta
Hmm.
is she's really direct. She's
She
plugged
directed
into the
episode 8.
episodes that have to do with the Princess Promise, and shout out to her. But anyways, it doesn't matter because this had all been planned long before that night. Okay, that night was just a justification for Alicent to, or it felt to me like it was just a reason for her to justify her actions as to what she was going to do. But like
But she
Otto
didn't
had
really know what
already
those guys
planned
were
it.
doing, right? It was Otto and the others that were
Exactly. They had
scheming.
already planned all this shit from the second that Viserys didn't marry that 12-year-old girl. So this was all inevitable. And it's at this point, children have died. It's too late. It's too late. It's decades too late. But I do appreciate Rhaenyra taking that leap to just listen to her advisors, Rhaenys, who was like, there might be another way, but she tried, right? And she tried. That's all I can say. She tried.
Yeah, Alicent actually does have a lot to worry about in this episode. Her boyfriend is riding into potential death and destruction.
Well, he asked her
And
favor, a little handkerchief.
yeah, and her brother saw that, which was interesting to watch. But yes, we have finally met. Got to really observe at least Sir Gawain Hightower, son of Otto, older brother of Alicent, played by Freddie Fox. Funny note here, actually, I find it interesting that this show goes out of its way to turn the most Targaryen-looking people
Bro,
into other things. Because if you see Freddie Fox and his hair, his blonde hair, normally it's like, yo, this person could play somebody from the Targaryen
that
family.
man
But
literally looks like a Targaryen, man.
yeah, it's the same thing with Tom Taylor, who plays Cregan Stark. Look at that guy in real life. He is the most Lannister-looking person you have ever seen, and they made him a Stark. I just thought that was really funny. Um, but yeah, Kristen has the Hand of the King chain now because obviously he can't stick a pin onto his plate.
Mhm.
He sits down in the chair of the Hand of the King. He's late to the meeting because he's contemplating his life. He's like, how did I get here? I failed upwards. Let's see how long this can go. And as he's going to the small council chamber, if like let's put aside like the whole plan and how they're heading to the Riverlands right now, because everybody wants to head to the Riverlands, right? In this episode, his journey to that chamber, seeing the new the new Kingsguard members, these new knights, just he's seeing them slacking literally on day one.
Yeah.
Day one, you guys are slacking. He's like, how did you get here? And he's like, oh, like you appointed new people to the Kingsguard. And he's like, yeah, their ranks are low. Gee, Kristen, I wonder whose fault that is.
He
Have,
literally did that to
having
himself.
said that, though, these guys are terrible. I can't stand these guys. For anybody who isn't aware, these are Aegon's friends that we've been seeing him hang around with, like just his posse this season so far. Um, Leon Estermont, that's the guy who was shouting Aegon the Magnanimous, and then the guy on the other side, Martin Rain, as in Rains of Castamere, the family that Tywin destroyed. Believe it or not, this is many years in the past, right? So that family actually does still exist in this time. And the last one, the black guy, his name is Eddard Waters. Just like Snow is the name that's given to bastards born in the north, and Sand is given to bastards born in Dorne. The one for the Crown Lands, that's the area surrounding King's Landing, is Waters. So this guy his nickname is Red Ned. I'm not sure how much we're going to see these guys move/fight, but I think it is interesting that Aegon has put all three of them in the Kingsguard. I mean, I would hope they're formidable fighters. I'm guessing Eddard Waters is. I don't know about Rain and Estermont. Those guys look like complete dickheads, if I'm being completely honest with you. But we'll see how it goes. Because we even see when Aegon is getting fitted for his armor, he's getting ready to fly out on Sunfire, even though he's been told not to. He is standing there with these guys, and they're like, "Oh, Rain has a squire who needs to be bedded for the first time." And he's like, "Oh, but you took a vow of chastity." And then they're laughing. It's like, "Oh, but like, I'm not kidding though." I thought that was great. I fully enjoyed that because these guys thought they were just going to shirk the rules because they have some familiarity with the king. He can still have your heads chopped off. He'll probably do it himself.
Yeah.
So let's just keep that in mind, and let's all be guided. Having said that, though, I wanted to ask you about Aemond because Aemond had an interesting role in this episode. We got to see his bravado and his outer shell that he projects, and we got to see somebody who only sees that outer shell kind of break in and look at his kind of innermost safest place, and we see him kind of recoil and become that hard guy again, even though he's like completely vulnerable and
Mm,
literally naked, right?
yeah.
So he's fully in the small council meetings now, and he counsels Aegon not to go to the Riverlands.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Neither of them should be going anywhere for now. They should definitely stay. However, with Aegon attending these meetings and Aemond attending these meetings, is becoming more and more of a family affair, right? Alicent is there too, of course. We don't have Otto anymore, and I definitely don't think Helena wants anything to do with this. Please, everybody should just leave her
She's
alone.
a sweet girl.
Yeah, but Aemond definitely has to kind of unwind somewhere. What did you think of that scene? First of all, like I mean, we'll get to everything that happens leading up to that point in a moment, but what do you think of that point where Aegon actually finds him inside that room with his first, essentially,
Mhm.
um, kind of basking in his mummy issues?
Honestly, I'm surprised Amon isn't Team Black. Because why is he stressing himself with this nigga, bro? It's
Truly,
it's just a bad like why I don't understand the point of all of that. Like maybe when you're kids, you tease, you bully, blah blah blah. But at
Aegon
some
was always
point,
a bully, like
yeah,
you said.
but at some point you have to have some level of self awareness because this guy is like he's the card you guys have, right? Because Vagar is the only dragon that can even compete with anything on the
It's
black
the
side, and
major
the black side
deterrent. It's like the
more
best thing they have.
exactly. It's like the nukes, and he has his finger over the trigger, and you still think you can mess with him, bro. But it's interesting though, because it's like to steal into the boys for a while. It's almost like with Homelander, we found out in episode 4. I think Bankole discussed it with Vicky. How, or I think I don't know who did episode 4, but
Oh, are
how.
we about to spoil the boys?
Oh crap, you're right. Oh my god, it's so hard to talk without spoilers. Whew. Okay, but my point is that it's almost like, yeah, he has all this power, but the psychological um um restraints, inflicted on him from his childhood just still are struggling to leave because I mean, at this point, you can fuck Aegon up easily. I mean, Aegon had Kingsguard with him, blah blah blah, but he can fuck him up, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But he still feels like, and you see that when he talked to his partner or whatever you call her a few episodes ago, or maybe an episode or two ago, when he was like, "Oh, they bullied me when I was younger," speaking
Hmm.
from the heart. So yeah, he should be a black. Maybe Rhaenyra can try and recruit him. It
If
might be
they're
more
able
useful.
to get Aemons to their side, this war is over. Like this war is
Like
fully
that.
over because I don't think the Greens would actually even stand a chance. But the only
Yeah.
reason that obviously it won't happen is because this dude killed Lucerys,
Yeah.
and I don't know
True.
if these guys, the blacks, would accept him.
No, they won't. I
I
won't.
mean, Aegon's Aegon's words in the small council chamber, "I'm as fearsome as any of them," and everybody's just like looking around nervously, like trying not to. And then, and it's funny because like the direction was amazing there. They cut the scene somewhere else after he said that. I thought that was pretty fun. Um, you know, in Dragonstone, we have even more of these dynamics of teamwork playing out, whereas Rhaenyra is welcoming someone else into her own council, right?
Mhm.
Because we just saw in King's Landing. I mean, I mentioned Aegon getting fitted for his armor, and while he's there, Larry Strong comes in and talks him out of doing something completely stupid, and Strong is able to actually secure an official job title. Right,
Mhm.
this man has been working hard, and now he can work in the shadows, but in the light, in full view of everybody. So
Mhm.
who knows? Maybe he's going to start attending small council meetings now. That could be an interesting dynamic. In the absence of someone like Otto, Clubfoot could offer a bit of a measured voice. We'll have to see how that goes.
He won't,
But
but
while
okay.
he is becoming the master of whispers in King's Landing, I wonder if Misaria is getting ready to take on that role in Dragonstone for the Black Council, because
Mhm.
obviously she's still around,
Mhm.
and I have to say, I she's she's doing very well for herself here.
Yeah.
she really is,
Who do
because
you
I
think
mean,
is the better
she's bargaining with
master?
Rhaenyra. What do you say?
Who do you think is the better master of whispers? Who's the better asset
Oof.
in terms of master of whispers?
I think I will give the edge to Missaria right now, because while Laris is good at collecting information and doing really, really useful work with it, he tends to use it as a point of fear, and he uses it as a tool for torture, to kind of drive him towards the direction he needs to go. He's able to draw information out of people that way. Whereas Missaria is able to do all of that. She doesn't really revel in torture as much, but she's able to manage information while having a good idea of what the small folk are feeling. So she's able to kind of ground and contextualize the information she finds in ways that the nobles can't. Because remember, Laris is still a nobleman, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't understand the small folk in certain ways. I mean, he's pretty good actually in getting a sense of what might make certain people tick. But Miss Arm might be able to get a little bit more out of them after having, lived with them. She's actually existed in this world and in Flea Bottom in a way that someone like Laris hasn't. So I'd say maybe in that sense, I'll give the edge to Misaria right now, but this could change.
Mm. Yeah, I think I give it to Laris for the exact same reasons you give it to Mazaria.
Oh, okay.
I think that with
Interesting.
Laris is there's an element of just like I feel like Miss Area is not as she won't be as brutal, like killing people, torturing
Hmm.
people, blah blah blah. Whereas Laris will, and yeah, people it's like they hate I can't talk Game of Thrones, whatever. But it's just an interesting. I think there's the brutality and just the brutality of everything is
Hmm.
why I probably would give Larys the edge. My brain isn't working right now, but also feet. So, and he is a lord of Harrenhal, which is like a big castle and commands,
Yes, a big damp castle, but
as we
I'll get
see.
to that in a second. Um, it, I feel like a lot of people watching this episode might complain a tiny bit about the whole telegraphing of sea smoke,
Yeah,
and how it's just like, oh, we keep seeing sea smoke flying in the sky. And now they went even so far as to say maybe he's lonely. And it's just like I would say to anybody who's mad at this, I don't think I don't think it's that they're failing. I really just think they're just trying to not be subtle here.
yeah,
And for all you know, it's a misdirect, right? We don't know exactly where Sea Smoke will end up, but I do think it's interesting that we're now seeing more of this dragon, and we're getting a sense of how dragons are when they are riderless. I think that's part of why they're showing us this, because they want
mm,
us to get a sense of that for context. Because obviously dragons get new riders all the time, and it might it might be interesting for us as viewers to understand what that entails, at least even from the point of view of the dragon.
yeah. I think honestly, I interpreted that as Rhaenyra died and Sismo can sense
Mm,
it. That was kind of how I interpreted it. He ran away with his mans and he died recently, and
interesting.
Sismo
I didn't
can
even think of that.
this because technically speaking, all dragons will only have one rider at a time. So how does the dragon?
Yeah.
And I always suspected that the Targaryens are somewhat wargs in some fashion, even though we don't
Hmm.
see it with Dany, but maybe I don't know. But I just always expected that the only reason why the only difference is that Leno has died and Sismo can sense it. But I don't know if that's
From
being a
that
bit.
perspective, you're definitely cooking there. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, I actually think it's funny because here this is going on, and Reyna is still very salty about not having a dragon. I mean, the way her face lights up, and she's now happy. She's now okay with going to the Vale when she's given those dragon eggs.
Yeah.
I think it's quite funny. Uh we'll have to see where Seasmoke ends up, and I hope we see more of Reyna soon. Because obviously her sister has a dragon,
Yeah.
and that's now a little bit of storylines colliding, right? Because Rhaenyra told Bela to go and patrol on Moon Dancer, whom we see. Moon Dancer looks somewhat similar to Sea Smoke, but looks kind of like the skills are very cool on Moon Dancer. I'd say that's a very nice looking dragon, and very nimble because of the size. Just big enough to ride, honestly. And the way Bela actually is able to come across Kristen and his people while going Hightower is talking about going to an inn. These people just want to stress me. they want to stress me because how are you putting me in a situation where I'm on the same side ideologically as Kristen? Come on, bro. Gwen, what are you doing? Like, don't
Well,
make me
first of
agree with Kristen
all,
Cole.
I mean that man almost died, and I was very happy. Like
He literally almost
I
died.
was really happy. He almost died because of a stupid man.
Yo, can you imagine me, Kristen Cole, having survived everything you survived, and then you meet one nigga once. You meet him once,
And then that's
and then
it.
you start running into your death. That is hilarious. They survived, but we'll see how it goes. I like the cinematography in there. The effects were just crazy because it's like these guys were trying to escape. They almost didn't make it, and Bela was actually almost able to get one of them because we understand based on what she was reporting to the court later that she saw them, and then she probably didn't engage, but then she went a little bit closer, and then she noticed that Kristen Cole was there, and she's like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get this dude!" Like that would have been a really really big win because I know we've always talked about how Amond is a really really big thing for the Greens, but so is Kristen Cole.
Yeah.
Let's not overlook him just yet. But speaking of dragons, right? Let's finally talk about Daemon and Caraxes. So I think it is interesting that Daemon is looking for a fight so desperately that he can't see that a win is a win. He gets into this place and he's just so desperate to fight. Like that dude's just like, oh, halt. He didn't even know what was about to be said. He just punches the dude and he's like, I'm claiming her horn. They're like, okay,
Okay.
welcome. Would you like some venison? That was great. He should have eaten that venison. It was probably really good, I have to say.
They
Um,
were trying to poison that
but
motherfucker.
the GoPro shot of because that's literally how I felt. It was like somebody put a GoPro on Caraxes as he was landing on Harrenhal because that was just there for like quite a while. That was a very interesting artistic choice regarding the
Yeah,
cinematography. Um, it was nice to lead through that and then see Caraxes land on what is already a castle in shambles. And I love how we meet Simon Strong. I think is what he said his name was, right? Simon.
Sam. I can't remember. Probably.
Laris's well, he is the uncle of Lionel Strong, who was like former hand of the king to Viserys and father of Laris and Harwin. So he is kind of like their great uncle, so to speak.
Yeah,
And I find it cool that he and the other people of the Strong family are aware that Laris is nothing to write home about.
yeah.
It's very clear. I mean, I love how they went out of their way in this episode to show us just what Harrenhal truly is. We saw a lot of it in Game of Thrones, of course. Like Tywin spent a lot of
That
time there,
that.
and I'm not. What do you? I'm not. What are you? I'm just saying, Tywin spent a lot of time there. We see a lot of it in season 2, right? We see certain characters meet in Harrenhal. We get to see different parts of it, and it's this giant castle that's made to feel kind of like a small village. And it was made by Harren the Black, of course, who was a king of the Iron Islands. The Iron Islands have pillaged the Riverlands for centuries. So this guy feels like he's won so much, like he's oppressing these people so much that he builds a monument to himself right in the middle of Westeros, and he wants the castle to be a representation of that. And all of a sudden, Aegon the Conqueror shows up. Harren doesn't capitulate, and he and all his sons get roasted in that castle, and that's
Mhm.
why it looks the way it does, right? For anybody who doesn't know, that's why Daemon can walk through it and see halls literally with rain coming through. But it's such a big place and it can garrison a lot of people, which is part of why Daemon and all these other people want to have access to it, right? And right now it belongs to House Strong. This is the same place that Viserys was named the heir to the throne in the very first scene of House of the Dragon when we see the Great Council and we see Jaehaerys and all the lords trying to vote in order to choose between Viserys and Rhaenys. And Harrenhal plays a big role in this story, partly because of that. And we're starting to see the little seeds of that here and there. So
Yeah,
I thought it was fun to see just how damp the place can be because of that. Because again, it's the Riverlands, right? It's very wet over there. So the fact that he pointed out to us that Lionel and Harwin were killed by fire in this place of all
yeah.
places
That's so
should tell
goddamn
you
dumb.
that there was foul play.
Hmm.
Like everybody's just aware of it. It's like, okay, really? Fire? We struggle to light our fires in our hearts in the summer. Let's be real. That's such a
Yeah,
crazy statement, though. Like, bro, it's hot and they still can't light a fire. That's how bad
yeah,
this place is. Harrenhal is obviously very cursed, and I know in the original series they talk about how like it's just bad for anybody who ends up living there.
yeah,
So I think it's nice to actually see people trying to dwell in that place and just making a go of it. So what do you think of Damon talking to this guy? Because at first I wondered if we might be looking at Lord Tully, but ain't no way, right? So
yeah,
uh yeah, what did you think of that conversation and everything Damon said? I mean, he did mention that what he's going for was the throne, and he demanded quite a bit to be referred to as Your Grace because he
yeah.
is the king consort
Even though
in
he
his
just
mind.
abandoned the
So yeah,
queen. I think
yeah.
what I found interesting there was I wasn't sure why Darren was taking Harrenhal. Was it taking it for Rhaenyra or was it taking it for himself?
I mean, this is what we discussed last week, right?
Yeah,
I mean, Rhaenyra said that she wonders if he's using her as a tool to grasp at his own lost inheritance, and
Whoa,
that is
whoa,
a very
whoa, whoa.
interesting idea.
Perception of lost inheritance. Perception of lost inheritance, because that shit wasn't his.
Yeah, I mean, he sees it as something that belonged to his brother, whom he always wanted to gain his approval, right?
Yeah,
You have to understand that Viserys practically raised Daemon in a sense. Their parents died when they were very young, right?
yeah,
So, The reason for that approval for that need for approval is partly because you know Viserys has always been somebody that Daemon looked up to,
Yeah.
right? So I think that dude, Lord Strong, at least the Lord Strong, who is the Castellan, not Laris Clubfoot, he reminded me a lot of of Lionel. I think their family actually has a very good heart for diplomacy. They're
Mm.
very good at it, um, and I think the whole the whole ease of understanding. Yeah, we're matched here. Do what you need. We declare for Rhaenyra. I think that was pretty smart, and honestly, they had nothing to lose. I think they probably knew that at some point somebody's going to show here,
Yeah.
and whoever shows up here first, we will just
Close to them.
we'll just declare for them because we don't want stress,
Yeah.
right? I loved his line, like I said, sin begets sin,
Mm.
and we've already said how it's nod to the stuff that Rainiers and I are always talking about, how we don't know where this whole thing started. It's just this cycle of hatred that keeps coming, and
Yeah.
there's pain that doesn't seem to end. And this is something that Nagato always taught us, right? Because um, based on everything that he learned from Jiraiya, we can kind of see those similar patterns here, I guess, because you just don't know where. I feel like people are listening to me and not and wondering
No,
if
no,
I'm even
you're
making.
spilling some Naruto.
I was gonna talk about Naruto here at some point. I think at this, I guess it's inevitable. But anyway, cycle of hatred, and in a sense, this energy can only be stopped when somebody goes out of their way to decide enough is enough. But nobody is doing that yet. So maybe we will finally see Grandpa Tully at some point, since everybody really wants to have a conversation with him about giving up the Riverlands. Um, but I noticed some interesting faces in that hall where Damon met the Strongs. This one girl who looked very unhappy to see him.
What's her face with the black hair?
Yeah, I'm not sure what. I mean, I don't know what her deal is right now. Maybe I know what her deal is, but I don't know what her deal is right now. And that line, I mean, first of all, you already mentioned that we saw Millie Alcock, right? So this whole thing of Damon having that dream, he's kind of locked up in this place. He's seeing visions now that he's here in Harrenhal, and that always signifies something in this world, right? He sees Rhaenyra, young Rhaenyra, which is interesting that that's the young Rhaenyra he sees.
Mm-hmm.
That is who he idealizes, because that's because he had control over that Rhaenyra.
Mm.
He had influence over that version of Rhaenyra, and she looked up to him, saw him as a challenge, and that's kind of nostalgia bait for him, given to him by himself,
Mm.
because he wants to be in a place where he is in control and she is beholden to him.
Yeah.
But then she's stitching the
The
head
head
back
back.
onto Jaehaerys. That is such an interesting touch. Like, what the heck is with this vision, right? Is this Daemon's way of feeling guilt? I mean, what did you think of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's all the confirmation we need that he said, kill that boy. Kill that Jaehaerys boy.
Wow. I
And he's feeling guilt. That's what it is. He's feeling guilt.
Yeah, but I mean, even the idea that the sentence sin begets sin was uttered here, and that's immediately followed by Damon having this vision, only to go out, only to find himself in the Godswood, right? The
mm,
Godswood of Harrenhal. Turns around, and then Sis is just there saying, "You're going to die in this place," and then she walks away.
yeah, that was badass.
What the heck
You
is
said that
that?
Helena. Oh my god.
How do you say that and just leave? What kind of person are you? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, man.
It's
I mean, do we care about this prophecy? Is this a prophecy? Is this
well,
just a crazy person
everybody's
talking?
gonna okay. Spoiler alert. By the time Game of Thrones comes out, unless you're the Red Witch, everybody here dies. So it's just how do they die? Um but
So
no,
it's a question of whether he will actually die in this place.
well, yeah, but is he gonna die in this page at 120 years old of old age,
Mm-hmm.
or is he gonna
Yeah.
die because he's gonna trip on I hit his head on a rock? Who the hell knows? But
And that's if she's right,
and that's
right?
if she's right, because prophecy, as we've talked about, is a double-edged sword. So who the hell even knows? But I guess we'll have to watch and see. Um, I did find honestly the Daemon part of the episode was probably the part that I felt least invested in, just because he left our
Interesting.
queen. Um,
Yeah, I mean, she was going through it, and she might not have been going through it if he had actually stayed home and been responsible, not
True,
acting on his own. I mean, she was
true,
taking a lot of nonsense from that rude idiot Alfred Broom,
yeah,
right? And Celtigar was not being much help. Neither was Massey, and Bar Emon was just quiet. Her maester is not even helping as much. Like these guys are all trying to control the little girl who happens to be the queen right now,
yeah.
and they probably will get their heads chopped off if they're not careful. Because there are lots of callbacks to many things from previous episodes in this show, and even from Game of Thrones, and from the books too, right? From the original Game of Thrones books, like the Song of Ice and Fire series. In King's Landing, as Kristen and his boys are riding out, we see Cheese hanging, and we see a crow kind of taking him out for lunch, and well, he's the lunch. So I thought that was an interesting callback to this idea of a feast for crows, which is the title of the fourth book in A Song of Ice and Fire.
Mm,
I wonder if they did that on purpose to just kind of give a nod to that idea, and I wonder if it was also doubly serving as foreshadowing, because we actually do see a fair amount of corpses in this episode, people who are casualties in one way or another. And Cheese, no matter what we look at, like we don't know his given name, but we know that he is a part of this story in a
mm,
very interesting way. Um, because I mean, even the title sequence, right? I don't know if you guys noticed this week, but the title sequence now includes Jaehaerys's death and the Ratcatchers being hanged.
mm,
And it shows how that being put into history actually affects the present day in real ways. Because in Game of Thrones, right, they don't have Ratcatchers. There are cats everywhere. And this is the reason for that.
mm,
That's why Tommen has a pet cat. That's why Joffrey, like they say, Joffrey's torturing cats here and there. This is why he has them in the first place. We see Arya chasing cats
okay,
there when the
okay. We're
Starks get
getting into
there.
spoilers.
How is this a spoiler? This is literally like episode one. Like we see all these people like actually seeing these animals there, and it's interesting that you think King's Landing is just a place where they exist, and of course it is, but this is why they have cats everywhere, because of what happened with the rat catchers.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to see cause and effect even on this small scale. Everything has some kind of consequence, including, I guess, Kristen's haircut. Why why the haircut?
Because you can't go to war without a first trim.
I mean,
Let's be
okay,
looking your best, your
if
Sunday
you say so.
best.
If you say so.
Oh my god, I can't wait for that moment. I hope bad things happen to him while he's on this like little excursion.
Yeah. Bad things happen to Helena though, and she's telling
Such
Allison,
a
"I forgive
person.
you."
I know.
She doesn't acknowledge what Allison did, but she just says, "I
I
forgive you,"
forgive
which I
you. Oh,
find hilarious because Allison really wants so badly to talk about the sins she has committed, and nobody wants to listen.
well, Helena will always, bro. Helena is like almost like the parent in that whole dynamic. She's like,
Mhm.
I think she's the only redeeming quality in the Greens for me. Maybe she should have married Jace and then this other been happier. I don't know that waste man she's married to.
I mean, that would have been an interesting match. That could have helped a lot, and it was suggested, to be honest.
Mm,
But I think Rhaenyra was not feeling it at the time. Maybe I'm not entirely
I
sure.
remember.
Um, we'd have to check up season 1, episode 6, The Princess and the Queen, to really get a clear understanding of how that conversation went. But
Yeah.
speaking of conversations, let's go to that brothel scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to the brothel, when we're in that bar in
Mm-hmm.
King's Landing, shall we talk about some dragon seeds?
Who was that guy?
That was Ulf.
I'm forgetting who that man is. I need to go reread my
Ulf,
book.
Ulf is Ulf is interesting, right? Because we saw him in episode 2,
Also, wait. Before this the Banco thing, should we bleep out the word dragon seed? Are
Nah.
we using that word yet?
Yeah, because he said it in this episode.
Oh, he did.
He said the word dragon seed. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't catch that. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I want us to talk about it because um and just to kind of bring everybody into the loop before they think we're
Yeah.
absolute raving lunatics. Dragons we've talked about primogeniture and how bastards are named in this world, right? And on this continent. However, the Targaryens, I think, took it a bit further. You have to understand that the way they are nobles in this world, they're not too different from all the other nobles. You see how Daemon behaves, you see how Aegon behaves. You understand all that stuff and think about the conversations they've had, even Daemon and Viserys talking about how they hoard their way through Flea Bottom and the streets of Silk when they were very, very young. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize there are probably Targaryen blooded bastards running around in various places, mostly in King's Landing, because that's where the Targaryens spend all their time. That is their domain. The Crown Lands are their domain. So I think in episode 2, Rhaenyra the Cruel, right before we see Aemond curling up in fetal position in a way that still does not make us feel sorry for him just yet. Um, we see one of the dancers with platinum blonde hair, similar to that of say Daenerys or
Hmm.
Rhaenyra or Aegon, any of these other people, and it made me wonder, like, is she a Targaryen bastard? We see so many people even in the first season, like when the Cargill brothers R.I.P. We saw their funeral in this episode. When they were looking for Aegon and they went to the fighting pit and they saw little kids, right? And they saw one with platinum hair, and like one of them was like, "Is that Aegon's?" You know, this is it's very interesting that these people would kind of find that as a normal thing, and they don't even try to hide it because they can't really hide it. Like the Targaryen genes are strong. People like
Yeah.
you're just going to be walking around with that hair, and everybody will kind of just know what you are.
Yeah.
And the small folk on some level would welcome it. Like we have accounts of people feeling honored that the dragons would come down from their perch to actually lie with them. There's this tradition of first night generally where when people get married in the Lord's domain, the Lord actually has the option to sleep with the wife first before the person that she's just married.
Yeah.
And some of the Targaryens were known to actually engage in this, and different people in different parts of Westeros also did this. Ned Stark famously did not ever want to do that. He felt that that was barbaric.
Mm.
Um, but I think the fact that the small folk were actually excited about that prospect led to this whole term of dragon seeds actually being created, because now like they have a term for people who are born of these kinds of unions, and it comes from a place of passion, right? So Ulf claims to be the half brother of Viserys and Daemon, son of their father with a prostitute, their father Balon the Brave, who died of a burst belly, as Viserys said. That's a very interesting prospect because, like he said, that would make the blood of the dragon something that runs through his veins.
Mm.
That would make him Rhaenyra's uncle. That would make him Aegon's uncle. That would literally make him the uncle of like literally so many of the other people, right? Because I mean that's Baela, Rhaena. He his additionally his nephew would also be Jaceres, like he says, who he says is the true heir to the throne. Right before Aegon walks in, and he's like, "All hail the king."
I said, bro, you better shut up.
Yo, I thought his head was about to come off.
Mhm.
Let's be real here. Um, but yeah, it's interesting to see that guy. Like they're introducing us to all these people little by little, and now they've brought this idea of dragon seeds. So I wonder how far they're going to take it in this season. What do you think? Like, what do you think of that conversation? And even the fact that he was talking to those people and giving them all this information, like talking to that Dornish guy, for example. Like,
Yeah. Well, he should probably shut up, even if he is, because why you just
I
like
agree.
Well, to be fair, I think it's one of these things. You're at a bar, and some guy, trust me, bro. Yeah. You tend not to
That's
listen
definitely
to
how
that
they
kind
see
of
it.
things. Yeah, but I
But
think
I think the
there
casting
might be
was
some
good.
truth to it. There might be some truth
Yeah,
to it.
because the casting was good. He somewhat has this. He has a vibe of being somewhat measured. He reminds me of Viserys somehow. I don't know why,
Mm.
but yeah, I thought that was interesting. One other interesting thing while they were at that table, the dude calls somebody to bring him a drink because Off says, a wet whistle blows a lot better, right? So they all start drinking and everything, and the barmaid who brings the drink is accosted by him. I felt very bad for her. I mean, I would normally, but I felt extra bad for her because we've seen this happen to her before. Because that is Diana. Diana is Diana is the girl from episode 8 that Alison pays to leave the Red Keep because Aegon has
Oh,
assaulted her.
right. I didn't even.
Aegon has assaulted her. She's shaking, right?
Mm.
And she likes her job. She's fine with her job. She's good at her job. Alison pays her to like leave and never speak of it to anyone. And now she's down here trying to make an honest living, and she's still going through the same thing.
With another Targaryen, kind of.
I mean, it's still even if he's not the one that touched her, I just think that was crazy because they showed her face and her reaction, and you can just see this feeling of like, oh my god, bro, like what is my life? That was wild, but yeah, I think that was an interesting callback. This was an episode full of callbacks. It was an episode full of setups as well. Like they did to have this much callback and this much setup in one episode is crazy. I felt like I watched 2 episodes,
Yeah,
like going through this thing. If it was so densely packed, and it didn't even feel too long. It felt like I was getting really, really good amounts of information. They were setting up nice things. I think this episode was really fun to watch for both book readers and show watchers. Like it's legit.
yeah, I agree. I agree. It's there's a lot of setup. Like I said at the start of the episode, I think it played almost like it's an SNL episode where there's just so much
Yeah,
going on. Um, but yeah, we're almost halfway through the first season.
yeah, because
The
the second season, right?
second, what did I say?
Yeah,
Sorry, we're
first.
halfway through the second season. My bad.
We after the first. It was halfway to the second
Second
season,
season,
and
only 8 episodes. This one, and then I'm just curious as to what the story is. What's going to happen at episode 7? Because usually the penultimate episode is where shit gets real. So I'm curious what's going to happen in this one.
one can only speculate at this point because we don't know exactly where they plan to stop. And for me, that's a good thing. I don't really want to know. I just want to experience it.
Yeah,
It's really good so far. So I'm very optimistic about where this will go. But we should go. I think we've covered everything. And before we do, I have to ask you, I guess, who played the game best?
I've been struggling more and more with this question every episode. If you have a clear winner, please say it so I can
It's
steal
for
the
me. It's Miss
idea.
Arya.
Miss
She
Arya.
was finessing this episode, negotiating with Rhaenyra, talking about the worth of a queen's life, saying you owe me. Nah,
Mm,
she really got ahead in the world in this episode. I have to say,
mm,
Miss
that's a
Arya is
good
one to
show.
watch. Lars did a good job too, but I'd say
Yeah,
Miss Arya is
I
one to
think
watch.
Laris might be mine actually, because he's still the
Okay.
head of Harrenhal, technically, even though
Mm.
Daemon's taken it from him. But I view it as he lost his seat in Harrenhal, and he gained a job finally because he's been craving that job for like years now. So shout out to him for achieving his goals. Um,
Shout out to him.
who played the game
And
worst? Queen Hightower. That motherfucker has been here for 5 minutes and almost got burnt.
well, I wonder what that's like being raised by Otto, and this is how you are.
Yeah.
I wonder how Otto feels about it. I wonder if we'll ever see them interact.
Hmm.
We'll have to wait.
I'll have to see
Um,
that.
but yeah, that is all from us today, folks. Thank you so much for listening up until the end. We appreciate all of you coming on this journey with us, and definitely listen to everything else that we're covering on the feed at this time. Like I said, we're covering The Boys. We just covered Inside Out. We're about to start covering The Bear, which is going to be amazing. That season is finally here, and we're going to keep covering House of the Dragon. every week up until the season ends. Definitely keep it locked to the feed for that, and sign up for our newsletter so you can get it when the next issue comes out. And until next week, Malam Magulis. See y'all.